One of the hardest truths about healing is that when you finally start setting boundaries, you don't just change your behavior, you change your relationships. People often expect boundaries to bring immediate peace and respect, but what nobody talks about is that boundaries can create distance. They can expose unhealthy dynamics, and they can even lead you to outgrow people you once felt deeply connected to. Today, I want to explore what happens when you stop abandoning yourself. Because when you start honoring your needs, you start speaking your truth, and you start setting boundaries, relationships are forced to adapt. Some grow stronger, some will fall away, and some reveals things to you that you never were able to see. We'll explore 4 reasons this happens and what you can do when growth starts changing your relationships. Welcome back to my podcast, Life Interrupted. My name is Janelle. Let's get started. When you stop abandoning yourself, some relationships can no longer function the way they used to. Many people think boundaries create conflict, and they don't. In reality, boundaries reveal what was already there. Setting boundaries can even improve a relationship, but sometimes the first boundary you set reveals the relationship was only working because you didn't have any. Healthy boundaries, they don't destroy relationships. In fact, healthy relationships often become stronger. So point number 1, before you had boundaries, people may have become accustomed to a version of you that was always available, accommodating, forgiving, and self-sacrificing. When you start saying no, expressing your needs, or protecting your time, you're not changing the relationship, you're revealing how the relationship was functioning all along. The survival of the relationship was dependent on you not tapping into your true essence. As you become the version of yourself that already lies within, you start to develop dignity, self-worth, and self-respect. This reveals the relationship patterns. Some people adjust and respect your growth. Others become uncomfortable because they benefited from the old version of you. Think about it this way. If a relationship only works when one person constantly sacrifices themselves, then the relationship isn't functioning as well as it appears. Before boundaries, you may have been that person who always said yes, you always answered the phone, and you always accommodated everyone else's needs, and you rarely expressed disappointment or frustration. The relationship felt peaceful because you were carrying the emotional weight, until one day you woke up. You might say, "Sorry, I can't do that. I need more notice. That doesn't work for me." And suddenly, people will react. They accuse you of being selfish, they become distant, they guilt trip you, they tell you you've changed. The boundary didn't create the problem, the boundary revealed that the relationship depended on your self-abandonment. I've spoken about self-abandonment in my previous videos. Essentially, people merge with the wishes, needs, and demands of others. They believe that the price of admission into any relationship is the forfeiture of all their needs, rights, and preferences, as well as boundaries. This can be incredibly painful because people often assume that if someone were to be upset with them because of their boundary, they did something wrong. In reality, discomfort is often the first sign that a relationship is being asked to become healthier. You didn't do anything wrong. Please remember that. But your trauma wound says differently. If you believe you've done something wrong, your boundary isn't just exposing your current relationship. It's exposing a pattern of not having boundaries and possibly being punished if you tried to assert yourself. This existed long before your current relationship. I want you to get a pen and I want you to get a paper, and I want you guys to tell yourself this statement. I'm being triggered by an old trauma wound. Setting boundaries is normal and healthy for any relationship to thrive and survive. I'm not selfish and I'm not wrong. They can either adapt or they can leave. I refuse to continue to shrink myself for someone else's comfort. Point number 2, growth changes what feels familiar. One of the strangest parts of healing is realizing that your nervous system doesn't always recognize healthy as safe. It recognizes familiar as safe. For example, It's not surprising when someone who experienced abuse growing up ends up in an abusive relationship as an adult. It might not be the same type of abuse, but it is unhealthy. Many relationships are formed around shared wounds, shared coping strategies, and shared survival patterns. For me personally, I dated what I'd like to call wounded birds because I understood their pain and coping strategies, and I bonded with them because I understood them. I saw myself in them. I treated them the way I wanted to be treated, but I never received the same treatment in return. This was a very familiar feeling. Maybe you both were people pleasers. Maybe you bonded over rescuing others. Maybe the friendship revolved around venting, complaining, or focusing on someone else's problems. Then you begin healing. You start taking responsibility for your emotions. You stop over-explaining yourself. You become more intentional with your energy. Conversations that once felt normal, they tend to feel draining. Dynamics that once felt comfortable start to feel heavy. This doesn't necessarily mean the other person is toxic. It simply means that you've evolved beyond the pattern that originally connected you. I've had clients who feared that this would happen, and they straight out told me, I'm not doing the work. Change can be scary, but you are essentially shedding your old patterns for healthier ones. Who you thought was your forever person will be someone you once knew. Please remember, when this happens, fear won't exist. You'll ask yourself, why didn't I do this sooner? You'll have a sense of relief and peace. Growth will change what's familiar if you let it. Don't stay stuck in the same cycle because of fear and guilt. Tell yourself the truth about the situation and allow growth to occur. Growth often creates an emotional gap before it creates a new level of connection. But sometimes the new connection, it never develops, and that's okay. Point number 3, not everyone wants access to the new you. This is one of the hardest truths to accept. Some people genuinely love you, but they love the old version of you. That's who they know, and that's who they feel comfortable with. The version that always agreed, the version that never challenged, the version that never asked for much. When you begin setting boundaries, speaking honestly, and prioritizing yourself, people may feel confused. For example, the people you used to drink with, they might say, you've changed. You think you're better than us? What's your problem? It's just one drink. What they're really saying is, I don't know how to relate to this version of you. And that's uncomfortable for both of you. If we go back to the example that I just mentioned in regards to giving up drinking, it's especially hard for that person because they might find themselves standing alone. The bar shielded them from loneliness. They bonded over drinks and shared similar stories. Change is not easy, but it's necessary. You may feel guilty because you're no longer showing up in familiar ways. They may feel rejected because they no longer have the same access to your time, your energy, or your emotional labor. The question becomes, can the relationship grow alongside your growth? Healthy relationships eventually adjust. The people around you learn who you're becoming. Unhealthy relationships keep trying to pull you back into who you used to be. Be wary of those people. They might try to subconsciously sabotage you to maintain the relationship. Keep your guilt in check. It's not your job to manage their emotions and their opinion of you. And it's not your job to maintain the relationship by engaging in unhealthy behavior. Recognize what's going on and stay grounded in what's true for you and your growth. Don't be afraid to walk away if you notice that the people around you are not adapting, even with time. Point number 4, grief is a part of growth. One thing nobody talks about enough is that grief comes with healing. We expect grief after a breakup. We expect grief after losing somebody. But we don't expect grief when we're becoming healthier. Yet healing often involves grieving relationships, identities, and versions of ourselves. Sometimes you outgrow people you deeply care about. There may be no betrayal, no dramatic ending, no obvious reason. You simply realize that the connection no longer fits. Maybe there were good moments. Not everything was bad or unhealthy. That realization can create enormous sadness. because two things can be true at the same time. You can love someone, and then you could also recognize that the relationship no longer supports who you are becoming. Many people try to avoid this grief by lowering their standards, removing boundaries, or returning to old patterns of behavior. But growth requires allowing yourself to mourn what was, while still choosing what is healthier for you. I want you guys to take this away. If you're finding that relationships are changing as you set boundaries, ask yourself this question. Am I losing people because I'm becoming difficult, or because I'm becoming different? The people who are meant to grow with you won't require you to shrink. They may need some time to adjust. They may not always understand, but they won't ask you to portray yourself to maintain a connection. The purpose of boundaries isn't to push people away. It's to make sure that the people who remain in your life can actually know the real you. No mask, just you. The goal of healing isn't to keep everyone comfortable. The goal is to build a life where you can remain connected to others without losing yourself. Do me a favor. If you made it to the end of my video, give it a thumbs up, okay? And comment below if you experience any changes in your relationships after setting boundaries. What did you do? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Bye for now.